Hope you can all hear and see me okay. So we're a little bit later than initially planned, but thank you for joining us anyway for the first monthly results of the practice challenge. Um, so before I announce the top three, there's a few things that have come up this month that I wanted to mention. Um, so one of the first things that I kind of saw when I set up this community and I was looking at um, other musician communities on this platform and just seeing like what they were offering and how the Warburton Music Studio would compare is I saw a statement that said this community is not a practice factory, and that made me think, oh no, am I just creating a practice factory here where we're all just logging our practice every day and it's just the be all and end all? But then, I thought about it a little bit more, and it it reminds me of, imagine if you had like a healthy eating community, a healthy lifestyle community, and they're saying, "Oh, this isn't a healthy eating factory." Um, and you think, well, yeah, it's not everything that you need for a healthy lifestyle, but it's still pretty important. And that's what practice is. If you want to improve your playing, if you want to become, the musician that you want to be, it is very important. Is it the only thing? No, but it is still very worthwhile, and it's just good to be in that habit. And so if this group can provide a little bit of that accountability, then I'm definitely all for it. Um, the next thing that's come up this month for some of us is being willing to take up space in our practice. Something I often hear is, oh, I don't want to bother anyone. I practice with headphones on, or only when everyone's out, when you've got the house to yourself. And, it comes from such a lovely place of not wanting to um, impose on anyone, not wanting to make them listen to something that they potentially don't want to listen to. But to that, I would say, a big part of growing as a musician and getting used to doing that regular practice is just being willing to take up space, knowing that people might be able to hear you, um, and that being okay. In all the years that I've been practicing, and that is a lot of years now, um, I've never heard a complaint. Okay. Uh, Even when I was in music college doing lots of practice, we all just sort of had an unwritten rule: 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. Just do what you got to do. Um, and then even when I moved out of halls, I wasn't living with students. Um, I've only ever heard lovely things. How great it is to hear someone practice. And I know an instrument like the harp does sound nice anyway, but you have permission to be doing your practice and you're not in anyone's way, and getting used to hearing yourself play is a really important part of the journey. So what can happen is we practice very timidly, and we're trying not to make too much noise, and we're playing very quiet because we want to be considerate to everybody. But then you come to your lesson and I'm like, I can't hear you. Need to be making more noise, more noise. And what's happened is, unfortunately, you've built that habit of playing really quietly so as not to impose and not to annoy anyone around you. But now you're in the habit of playing really quietly and timidly. And then it becomes something else that you've got to break out of. Okay, just playing with a bit more confidence, not being afraid to take up that space. Okay. Um, Something else that has come up for me as well doing the challenge this month is just finding when to build that habit of practice if we're trying to practice every day, or most days anyway. Um, I know we all have wildly different schedules and different things are going to work for different people. but I've always found that first thing in the morning is really good. Um, our brains are sorry, our brains are fresh from our good night's sleep, hopefully. Um, so we can just capitalize on the feeling fresh for the day, get our practice done while our brains are open and receptive to learning. Um, but I realize that's not possible for everyone. It's very rarely possible for me too. I've got a toddler at home. But if you do have the option and first thing in the morning, is possible for you, I would definitely give that a go. The evening is quite good too because I believe when we sleep on it, when we sleep on our practice, that's when what we've learned gets absorbed, ready to have another go the next day and maybe see the improvements from the brain, sort of sorting it all out while you sleep. But whenever you can is the best time of day to practice. Um, you could try tying it to another habit that you do. So if you always, I don't know, um, have a nice lunch break, for example, you could maybe add on 20 minutes to that and do your practice then. Finding these little pockets of time, I know is really, really tricky, but honestly, if you can make a habit of it and it's just that's what I do when I'm doing XYZ, um, then it will be much easier to build that habit. So I'd be interested to know when you're managing to find your pockets of time to practice. So definitely let me know. Um, for me, it tends to be I get a lot done on Wednesdays and Thursdays when Sophie's in nursery. And Mondays and Tuesdays, as a lot of you know, that's when I see a lot of you guys. Um, if I ever have a gap or anything, I tend to try and jump on that and do some practice at that point. So I'm just checking my list here, what else I wanted to mention. It's a really strange feeling, and it can be a new feeling for us when we do start practicing every day or most days, because you start to feel really over prepared um, for anything you've got coming up. So, for you guys, you might suddenly feel, oh, yeah, I'm ready for this lesson. Um, I might have written down what I wanted to hear, maybe a certain section or a piece hands together or with the metronome or something like that. And you just kind of get this sense of, yeah, I'm ready. And if you're not ready, then a sense of, well, I've done everything I can. So maybe there's some more to talk about. Um, but that feeling of that uncomfortable feeling of I've not maybe not done enough this week, that kind of dissipates, and it's really nice to not have that feeling anymore. um for me it comes to when I'm playing for weddings or concerts, or if I'm playing the organ at church. I just feel very comfortable, and I just feel like, yeah, I've done everything I can to prepare for this. I've made the most of the time that I've had available. So if it doesn't go as well as I want it to, that's just life. Okay. But it's not because I haven't done my practice. So you just get a feeling of just, yeah, you're just happy with the work that you've put in. And yes, it pays off 99% of the time, but sometimes things still don't go as we would like them. That's just the nature of music. And you know that it hasn't come because you've not put the work in. Just gonna have a little sip of water. I know I called this challenge results and coffee. Um, that was when it was going to be in the morning, but in the afternoon I tend to try and stay away from coffee. So challenge results and water it is today. So the last big thing that I wanted to talk with you about today is that doing this challenge for me has reminded me that daily practice really compounds your improvement, and it really compounds your results. So your improvements build on each other over time.